Hello, this is Margaret Ajibola, the STEM Positive Disruptor, and today I have a special guest. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited about it because she's got one of energy, Fiona McGarry. She tells more about herself. She's the sector manager, engagement manager for Enginuity, and as you can tell, but her passion is engineering, apprenticeship, and how can we do that? So the question is basically, can engineering apprenticeship help bridge the technical skills in our industry? So the reason why we set up this platform is we want to educate, we want to raise awareness, we want to change perception and demystify. We want to start a conversation within our government, our education system and industry. How can we be more efficient and how can we get our young people ready for the new session as well? But also about how can we increase the number of females coming into the industry as well? So it's changing the perception, but unless we talk about it, we just complain about it. We don't want to do that. We want to provide solutions. So, without further ado, I really just want Fiona to just take the floor and then tell us more about yourself. Thank you, Fiona.
So, hi, I'm Fiona McGarry. I'm Sector Engagement Manager at Enginuity, but I've been in manufacturing and engineering for over 20 years. So I started my engineering manufacturing career at Jaguar Land Rover, running their education partnership centres. And that's where I really saw the impact of bringing a young person into a manufacturing environment, taking a 7-year-old down a factory line, seeing how cars are put together. You can't help but inspire. And then there I worked on a programme to get more young females into apprenticeships, because at the time, the females weren't really entering the level 3 apprenticeship scheme at Jaguar Land Rover. So we did the Young Women in the Know programme, and that was really successful. And then I moved to a training provider where I supported those Jaguar Land Rover female apprentices. And it was challenging for them and it was hard. And, things had to change, and they were able to, because there was a lot of them, make those changes. And then I think over the last few years, those numbers have dropped again. And it's really hard when you're that only female apprentice in a manufacturing and engineering company, and how your voice can be heard and how you can be supported. And then now I've been at Enginuity for a year and a half, working with SMEs on how we can bridge that skills gap and what those potential solutions are. Because we know we aren't attracting diverse young people to the sector. What do we need to do to ensure that we are? And how can we change things and, raise the profile of apprenticeships? I think we've struggled for a number of years to get parents on board with the apprenticeship, because there's always been that perception. It's for those who are less able, less academic, not really going to achieve. And I think we've worked really, really hard and we've really raised that profile. But now we're battling against degree apprenticeships because they seem to be the only acceptable apprenticeships for a parent. So, they're getting a free degree. It's really good. They're getting a degree. They're not interested in level 2 and level 3 apprenticeships still. And to me, within our sector, that's where I think we get the best young people coming through, and they get that real grounding, real understanding, and then they can go on and do a degree afterwards. But we need to get more parents on board with that level 2 and level 3 engineering apprenticeship.
So are you saying then the stopgap is parents not appreciating the value of apprenticeship? And so because they don't see the value add, or it's not prestigious enough, if that makes sense, in the lower level 1, level 2. So because you've been in this scene for quite a while. So how do we change the mindset of parents to be able to do that? Because I know this is something, it's a continual battle, but you see, there's an adverse effect as well, where in our industry, we have the skill shortage, and we are still struggling to just get to fill in the gaps. So we look for alternatives to do that. So I'm going back to the parents. How do we change the mindset? How can we let them see things in a slightly different way? Because one of the things I do know is that young people do not learn in the traditional way. Not all young people do, sorry. And so you cannot fit everyone in one box. One shoe size does not fit all. So I'm a bit surprised that parents can't see that. So what would you say is the way forward to do that, to change the perception of parents or educate them?
I was at the Multicultural Alliance event a couple of years ago, and one of their speakers spoke about the fact that you hear so often that my child's the first child in our family to go to university, and everyone really, but you never hear people saying, my child's the first child to do an apprenticeship. It's just not celebrated on that level. And I think we really need to change that. I was at another event the other week, and somebody was speaking about the fact that we've got engineering graduates working in Costa Coffee because they can't get roles. And you've got welders who are qualified at level 2 and level 3 earning £80,000. And I think people need to realise the mindset that these practical skills that you can often get at level 2 and level 3 are so in demand these days, and that, you know, young people will have valuable, varied and rewarding careers coming in at that level. They can still then go on. It's understanding it's more of a ladder. There was a young apprentice who I used to mentor when I was at a training provider. She was one of those Jaguar Land Rover girl apprentices. She completed a level 3, and it came to COVID, and she wasn't quite sure what to do. So she went and did a formula racing degree.
Right. Yeah.
And now she's at JCB doing a graduate scheme. And she spoke at an event the other week. Amber, she's an Asian young female, very inspiring. And she said, it isn't that linear line. It's, you know, it's higgledy-piggledy. You don't have to just go from one level to another. It's understanding that you can just, you know, try different things. And I think it's moving away from that mindset of a job for life, because that doesn't happen anymore. And, you know, and people can try different things. And it's celebrating those differences and celebrating the fact that somebody might be a practical learner. And instead of, and you're probably going to ask a question on this bit, but instead of at 14, when a young person who is a practical learner, forcing them down those GCSE options where they're not going to flourish, they're not going to thrive, they're going to think that they're a failure because they can't be attaining those GCSEs. Instead, at 14, pull those young people to an opportunity where they can demonstrate their skills and abilities within a practical way. And, you know, I'm a governor at an alternative provision in Birmingham. And those young learners, when they are in the right environment and they are given the right opportunities, they absolutely thrive. They've not been wanted in the secondary education system because they're trouble, they're awkward, but it's because we're pushing them all. I personally think our secondary education system's broken, and we're just making so many young people feel like failures at 16. So it's no wonder we've got the highest NEET figures in a decade, because they're so disillusioned. At 14, we can capture them. There's a brilliant facility in Derby called Engineered Learning, and the gentleman there works with NEET young people, but also young people in alternative provisions, and teaches them welding and fabrication. And they absolutely love it. And they've got that real understanding from 14 of what an engineering career can be.
And that's, so sorry, I was just going to say, and that's the case. And I think in a way, because engineering, in a way, when we classify the term engineer, it's so broad. You don't give the young person the ability to understand what that really means, because it's so broad. It covers a multitude of things which is not so obvious. And you're quite right. And I think as well, I'm a bit surprised that parents can't see the need that every young person, or every person, it doesn't matter if you're young or old, that we learn differently. And I think unless and we can't fix, and this is why we have this crisis right now, because we're trying to fit everyone in the same way. This is the route, the traditional route, but the traditional route does not work. If it worked, we won't be having this crisis that we have right now. And I think this is something that, you know, we've had this conversation, we talk about it a lot, but we don't, it's like say we're not translating it into a practical, what can we do to make that difference? And so thank you so much for that, because I never thought of that parents were there to think that way, because I would have thought parents would want their children to flourish in the best way possible, so they can opt and be the best that they can be. So you saying parents are one of the factors really sort of throw me. I never thought about parents being an issue. They're not an issue, but it's just a perception of what.
And I think parents don't understand apprenticeships. I'm very lucky. I'm embedded in it. So I understand it, and I can see. And I think, and it did used to be when I was growing up, if you weren't very good, you did an apprenticeship. And so they might have that, but it isn't. And I just, you know, so many young people do so well down that apprenticeship route, and they don't have the debt, and they have that bed, because my daughter's 16, she just finished her GCSEs, and she can't get a job because nobody wants to give anyone a job without experience. And that's
Yeah,
what's brilliant about an apprenticeship, because you're getting
yeah.
that hands-on
Hands-on
experience.
experience,
Yeah,
yeah,
knowledge, training. It's
yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. So thank you very much for that. That's so true as well. So because I know you're very passionate about manufacturing and engineering and apprenticeship. So how can we, because we know there are lots of vision, like it's very societal as well, where society says this or society, the projection or what they see is key or how it should be is a certain way. But how can we move it forward? Because we can't, I mean, it's a long drawn thing where we have to, it's about changing people's perception, changing attitude, education, raising awareness for us to change that. Even where females are concerned and going into the engineering field, I know there was a report in 2023-24 saying that 17% of females go into apprenticeship, engineering technology. But then again, we've had that little increments for years now, but but things are happening. So we're not saying nothing's happening, but why? What can we do to change that? Because I know you're very, very much about diversity, about in the next generation. But if the next, I know with guys, because even just listen to some of the young boys, they're looking for apprenticeship because they know their capability, they know what works for them. But I think girls don't always look at it that way because no one's ever introduced them into them. So how can we change that to bring to that level?
It is around the perceptions, and I think with the industrial strategy that's going to come out in the next couple of weeks, I think there's going to be some investment in perceptions around apprenticeship skills and engineering and manufacturing. But it is those relatable role models, and I think, and it's getting young people where they are in terms of social media and TikTok, and showcasing those day in the life of an apprentice. I'm part of a women in manufacturing group, and it was really good yesterday. Some of the female apprentices on that, they are going to set up a TikTok channel showcasing their journeys and what they've done and how their career is going. And it is influencing those young girls so they can see what opportunities are available. But it is slow. I mean, it went up to 16.5% females in engineering and manufacturing. Last year it dropped to 15.7%, and it's just been announced it's 16.9%. But the issue but the issue we have is the retention. We're doing a lot of work attracting these young girls into the sector. And then when they get there, it's not what they expected, and they're not supported, and they're not given the opportunities that the boys are. And we end up losing them. And that age is coming further down. It was around 35, but now young girls in their 20s. I was on a panel with a girl the other week at Amazon, and she was saying, she isn't always valued and her voice isn't always listened to. And it gets to a point where you think, this is too much hard work. I need to go somewhere else where I am listened to and, I am supported. And we need to do a lot more. It's around male allies. We need far more males in the sector, to be that voice for that female when she's not in the room, to say, actually, she deserves this opportunity. She deserves this promotion. And there's a lot of work that needs to be done around the culture in the sector.
Yeah. So I totally agree about the culture thing. I think allies, because we've had this conversation about allies for a long time, and they seem to dip in and out. And I know it's like this trend now where we're talking about allies again, but it's nothing new in that respect. It's always been that. But you see, the thing is, it's like we're shooting ourselves in the foot. We're saying we have an issue, but we're not accommodating enough to do something about what can we do while we can do it. And I think in a way the industry, and I think that there's a gap between the industry, the education system, and yes, government can put policies in place, but the industry has to talk to the education. They have to find a way to bridge the gap. We have to find a way to go not just from the secondary school age to a very much younger age, because perception from that young age, there's so many options for us now there of young people that engineering is not part of that. They don't think about it that way. So by the time you get to secondary school, you're thinking, oh, okay, all right. So what is it? So what would you say that the industry needs to do? Because I think we have the skills shortage. Apprenticeship is a big part of solutions. I believe that it is. But what's the missing gap? What is it with that we're missed? There's something that's not working and hasn't worked for decades. So it's not a new thing. So how can we bridge that gap? What do we need to do? Apart
And
from
that,
going outside the world, out to everybody else to get the skills,
yeah. Oh, yeah. And it's that education piece. And, when I was at Jaguar Land Rover, we had 7-year-olds coming around the factory. And there's not many places that do that. And
yeah,
people think they can turn up in year 10 at the local secondary school and get all the young people to apply for their roles. And it's not, it's a much longer term piece. And I say to every manufacturer, you should be engaging with your local primary and your local secondary. You don't have to do loads and loads, but you need to raise awareness about what your company does and what opportunities are available. There's things like National Manufacturing Day, open your doors, but ensure that it's not just your secondary and you are engaging with those, primary students. And, there's going to be so many roles that disappear over the next decade because of AI. There's so many roles, but engineering and manufacturing are not those roles. There will always be a requirement for us to make things. And I think it's, making, and the satisfaction you can get from being involved in creating something.
yeah.
So I think it's showcasing that to young people and then really letting them understand that, there is that A-level university route, but there's also T-levels and there's also apprenticeships. And there are different things that suit different people.
Yeah.
And no one is better than the other. It's just a different path to a
Preference
different
as well, of course.
Yeah.
Because at the end goal is we want to fill the skills,
Yeah.
to be able to fit in those skills gaps that are so prevalent, that's been there for years. And because of, as you're saying, technology is evolving all the time, AI has come into play.
Yeah.
Engineering and manufacturing is still there. It's evolving.
Yeah.
They may call it a different name, but the same fundamentals are the same. And it's about ensuring that it's about ensuring we are still bridging that gap between the old and the new, and how although it's transforming, it's not changing the need for that role. It's just maybe called a slightly different thing. So thank you so much for that. But my one of my big bets is the fact that we have the future, the young generation coming up. They're still learning. They'll find their way, finding their feet, and finding what they really like to do. How can we bridge? How can we get them ready for the? So let's say they have a passion for engineering, or they don't really know what engineering, but they get to a point where they really do want to. So how can we get them ready for the industry? What is it that the different elements need to do to make sure by the time this young person's coming out, or it doesn't matter because they're adults as well, but we're talking about young people. How do we bridge that so that they're ready for those roles that are going to be available then?
It comes back to that secondary education system that needs changing and preparing these young people for the world of work. I know there's new guidance coming now that from September, between year 8 and 11, they're going to have 2 weeks work experience, because some young people get no work experience. There's new guidelines coming in, and then to make it less onerous on employers, it won't necessarily be a week block and a week block. You could just do 1 or 2 days, but it's giving them that real world, experience understanding a lot more about the different careers, because you want a young person to make an informed decision. They're not all going to want to be engineers, but as long as they know what they're switching off from, that's what's important, and they understand it. And it's getting those relatable role models in. But also, I do think to change the secondary education system, I appreciate, is a massive, massive ask, and everyone just puts it on the too hard to do pile. But we could transform it from 14 plus, because that is that key point where I think those young people who are incredibly academic and that is the way they want to go, the current system works for them in terms of, doing their GCSEs and then moving on to their next stage. There are so many other young people where it definitely doesn't. And then there's those others in between. If we could look at transforming that education piece, so they did their English and maths still, but they had the opportunity to spend time in other industries, to understand and to develop more practical, transferable skills that would get them work ready. I think that is something that could be achieved.
Yeah, so true. And one of the things you said is at the beginning is that you work with a lot of SMEs.
Yeah.
SMEs, they want to get more people, but also the resources are not always available.
Yeah.
So how do we help them as SMEs to to get to that point where they can open their door to a young person and still have enough time to show them the ropes?
So Enginuity, that's what we do. We specialise in SMEs and creating support packages for them. So we launched a toolkit in April this year for SME employers on how to attract and retain and support female apprentices.
Okay.
So we've got some support around that. We're also looking around neurodiversity, because neurodiverse young people make amazing engineers. So what you, and as an SME, you might think, oh, I don't want somebody with autism or ADHD or something, that wouldn't suit my environment. But it's explaining to them that just the little changes, the little things that could be changed to support that young person, and they will be your most accurate and your most, spot on person that you've got in certain things. Because a lot of the time it's a superpower with an engineering, because it is that attention to detail, that repetition and stuff like that. So it's around supporting those SMEs and then ensuring that the training provider that they have for their apprenticeship is providing the best wraparound for that individual in terms of mentoring and support. And then we've also got a course on how to support SMEs to mentor that apprentice when they are in their organisation, because that's really key as well. Pairing them up with somebody that can support them and be that trusted friend as they go through that learning space, so that they can get the best out of their apprenticeship and then stay with the company. Because I think that's what a lot of SMEs worry about, is they invest in this talent and then it disappears. So
it's, I mean, I think it's a great idea, and I think this is something that has been going on for a while. But I do like the idea of what Enginuity is doing, and I think this is so key as well. Because you talked about the support, but the support is quite diverse in what you provide to support them. So I guess it depends on the need, it depends on where they are, and or the SME. Yeah, sorry.
And workforce planning, we support with that as well. So it is, because it's such an aging workforce in engineering, what do you need? Do you need an apprentice, or do you need somebody that's, a career changer, or somebody that's coming to a different part of their journey and they're more qualified? Because as you were saying, like with welding, there's a massive shortage of welders. Only 5% of welders are female, so we need to do something around that, because we can track, and females make really good welders because they're lower center of gravity and often attention to detail. But there's stuff that needs to be done around the culture with that to attract more females into welding, because it's not necessarily the best place for them to be, and what we can do around that. But it's about, because at the moment they're bringing in that talent from abroad, because we can't have enough welders here. So what can we do to ensure that we can fill that talent pipeline?
So it's not just what I'm hearing you is, it's not just about the young people, it's also about people with career change. It's about adults who've decided, okay, fine, I want to carry on, but I want to try different things in that industry. So, but see, this is my frustration with the industry. Sorry,
no,
we do not like change. We complain about something, but we do not want to accommodate the different opportunities that we can. So, give me what would you say the industry needs to do, but also can the government help them to do that? Because there's so many potential talented people that can fill those gaps, but we're not looking at that way. We're looking at a certain way. We believe there's only these types or age group that can do the job. So what would you suggest we should do?
Well, we're not in a great place at the moment. So unfortunately, with the NICs increases that have been put on, a lot of companies for the first time in a long time aren't taking on apprentices this year. And I struggle with that, because it's short-sighted. I get financially, with energy costs, with NICs, particularly with SMEs within manufacturing and engineering, it is a struggle. And you can't, rationalise taking on a young person that's going to need training, that's not going to really hit your head count for a year or so, when you've got other employees that you need to keep. But the problem is that apprentice is going to be your workforce fully qualified in 4 years' time. So the impact by not spending that money on an apprentice now is going to impact you in 4 years' time. But I really appreciate that it is challenging. But I think you've just constantly got to invest in that, talent pipeline. And is it something the government needs to step in and support with? But then they were the ones who introduced the NICs increases, and they can be involved with the energy cost reductions, which might be announced in a week or so's time. but there's just a lot of demands on SMEs at the moment, and some of them are just trying to keep afloat. And
Of
I
course,
totally realise that. But what we can do, there has been initiatives in the past where some larger employers have done overtrained apprenticeships, where they take on, say, 100 extra than what they need, train them for the first year, and then support the supply chain and SMEs. And that does help, because that first year in engineering is really expensive for an employer, because they're often their training provider. And so I think there is initiatives that we could look at that can be done, but we've got to keep, because now I think we're at this point where we've got so many young people who do want to do a year level 2 and level 3 apprenticeship, and now they can't find them. Loads of young people want to go into trades and they can't find a trade apprenticeship because people are stepping back and not offering them. And we can't disengage these young people that actually want to get in. So we need to look at some solutions around that and some support, so that we can, because, you know, we've switched them onto it now, we've inspired them, and we need to be creating opportunities for them.
Indeed. You know, I totally agree with that. And I think also, because one of the questions I was actually asking is about, what about those adults, sorry, when adults, I'm the older generation who maybe want to still work, but you think they're past their sell-by date. What can we do, what can be done, apart from the SMEs, but also bigger companies as well, how we can bridge the gap? Because I think
we can utilize their knowledge and their understanding to help train this next generation and support this next generation, so that their skills and knowledge isn't lost. But there is opportunity as well to go into tutoring. It's not for everyone. Just because you're a good engineer doesn't mean you're a great tutor. But there's a massive tutor shortage in our sector. Could you utilize those skills to support, you know, young people who with their training? So, you know, there's the skills gap in engineering, but there's an even bigger skills gap when it comes to tutors to teach those apprentices to ensure that they are, you know, qualified when they come into the workplace. Indeed. But career changes, I think that's the other social mobility. Apprenticeships enable social mobility, and apprenticeships enable career changes. I had quite a few apprentices in my previous role that were able to, because it is well paid in engineering apprenticeship, were able to leave roles and retrain. And I think that's what's really, you know, a brilliant opportunity with engineering apprenticeships.
You know, thank you so much. You know that I want to talk with you, because I feel so passionate about it. And I think in a way we do a disservice to ourselves, because we're not maximizing, optimizing what we have available, or we're very short-sighted in some of the decisions we make. And it's about us being long term. And, you know, I do have passion for us to bring that change, and for us to, because I want our industry to flourish, and, you know, to showcase the talents that we have in the UK. And sometimes they're not given that opportunity. And, you know, I'm so grateful that you've come on board, just even if it's just a short, brief conversation. But it also shows that there are lots of things going on behind it, but there are lots of things that still need to be done. It's a long term. It's about the culture. It's about society's way of thinking. It's about parents, getting everyone involved to bring that change. And so I'm Fiona, series so grateful that you've come on board, and I really enjoy this, because I think it's not so much about having a long conversations, about us ensuring that we do the right thing, and enable everyone to have that information available to them. So thank you so much. I really appreciate
thank you for having me.
Oh no, look, I'm telling you, you've made my day, because you know, just listening to you and your passion for this shows that, you know, there's so many people who want the same thing. But I think we also need the government, the industry, we need the education to listen, because the problem cannot be fixed overnight. The education system has to change. As you said, the secondary school system does not work as it should do. The primary school works up to a point, but I think we start to nurture them from a young age. You need to start feeding them from a younger, so they can have information enough to make informed decision, with not just for the younger people, for the parents as well. And you know, you also talked about their apprenticeship, about how parents don't see level 1 and level 2, which is the practical side of things, as engineer, as worth investing in, or getting their young people to go. And I think it's about changing that and exposing the reasons why it's so important we look at those levels, because it's still a needed level. AI will eventually come in, but it will not change a need for those skill sets. It's an expertise that not everyone has, and we need to invest in that. And I think this is basically what you're saying. So I am so grateful that, you know, you I want to talk to you more. I want to say, yeah, let's talk more about this. So thank you so much. I really appreciate your time, you taking time, because I know you've been very, very busy this month. But I'm excited that you took time out to talk to me too.
No. It's been lovely. It's been a pleasure.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Again, thank you. Again, this is Margaret Ajibode, the STEM Positive Disruptor, and my special guest, Fiona. Look, you've got to listen to this podcast. Listen to what she's saying and the solutions that we can bring to the table that will impact our industry and help bridge the skills gap as well, about nurturing our young people, parents thinking and educating our parents and changing perceptions so that they can see the importance of apprenticeship of level 1, level 2, the getting females into the industry as well. It also means that we need allies in the industry. We need to get other people involved so they can the work environment is safe for everyone. They can feel their time is worthwhile being in that environment. So lots of things. So please listen to this podcast. If you love it, please subscribe, comment about it, share with your network. Let's spread the word and let's bring the change that we want to see in our industry. So thank you again very much. Thank you.